Let's welcome Rogers. Here you go.
The popularity of dating sims has allowed individuals to substitute real-life events like relationships, like having a girlfriend, like having a sexual attraction towards a particular individual, into an object that is your computer, right? You fall in love with your computer. The characterization that exists with status quo is extremely saddening and problematic. By not regretting the rise of these dating sims, you further sadden and that horrible characterization that exists within status quo. What is status quo and how does it work? We live in a world where vulnerable individuals are exposed to many forms of influences regarding beauty, especially in itself. That we have a perception or a connotation that there is a perfect person with big breasts. There is a perfect person with that particular good-looking eyes and good-looking skin color that you want to look forward to. Yeah, like Kelvin, good-looking skin color within status quo that you want to look forward to. Sadly, this person doesn't exist. But advertisements and influences exist. For example, number one, it's very saddening that a kid and a documentary about African children suffering with the status quo gets less views or less likes compared to a Victoria's Secret advertisement. This proves that the undue influence that exists with the status quo is extremely large. Or when it comes to games, I don't know what you're going to respond to my characterization. Sit down, right? When it comes to games, for example, when you hear or in big boxing games, where you have the models holding up those signs with those bikinis, these are influences of what a perfect person should be, and those persons are the ones that you tried up. Or even ads. It doesn't necessarily happen to girls when David Beckham or Rafael Nadal have photo shoots that tell you that this is how a man must have, this is how you should look, or this is how a female must have, this is how a female should look. It proves the society is facilitated into believing that there is a particular standard as to what beauty should be. We think that the rise of dating sites perpetuates and furthers those standards. We think we have to regret the particular situation because there's an intangible standard that no woman can achieve within status quo, or any man, right? The rise then happens because you couldn't find a perfect individual, because you couldn't find that person that was so beautiful within the Victoria's Secret ad or within that particular advertisement that you saw. You then result to this particular dating sim. You result to these kinds of methods of getting yourself and making yourself feel better, because you are doing this because of your denial, because you couldn't have the ability to find that particular perfect person with status quo. This rise attraction shouldn't happen because it's done by individuals who are vulnerable, who are irrational, and are doing this because they don't understand and they think that they should result to this because they can transfer that reality, that fake reality, towards a computer. We think that's extremely problematic. We want to debunk the perception that exists. For that, sure.
Isn't that the person's own informed choice to go fall into this dating scene?
We think that we limit informed choice when it comes to having bad influences or bad harms. When we're going to tell you, when you allow this informed choice to these individuals, you have harms to many stakeholders, then therefore I'll prove to you later in my arguments. Two arguments for you to remember, Chair. Number one, on the false idea or the false perception of reality, but number two, on how you victimize individuals who are vulnerable, especially teens or children within status quo. We think it's important to recognize those stakeholders. Number one, let's look at reality and how reality functions. People aren't necessarily what you want them to be. You have discourse, you have the ability to understand and learn how people necessarily work. So you don't have the best person to talk to, you have to learn and accommodate to become a tolerable person in that particular person's eyes. This means when you have interactions with the status quo in a relationship, you have to change yourself to accommodate to whatever that particular person wants. No, thank you. We think that exists within reality. That's what forms and makes you a person in nature. What happens when you substitute this situation? There are 5 harms. Number one, when you substitute this into a dating sim, there is no form of discourse as to what you like. Because whatever I like will be the same as whatever that computer like. If I like burgers, the computer will like burgers. We think that's problematic. Because when you have discourse and you have preferences, sit down, sir, it means that you have the ability to understand and learn from a different person. That's understanding and changing yourself in the process and becoming a better individual when you get involved into a relationship. We think this is important. Number two, when it comes to mistakes, guys, calm down. When it comes to mistakes, I think it's important to understand. In everyday relationships, you do make mistakes, you do learn from those mistakes, and then therefore you move forward. In a dating sim, you have the perfect person who will listen to your every need. There is no way that person will reject you. There is no way that the person will ignore you, and there's no way that the person will make you feel that you've made a mistake. This is problematic because when people learn from mistakes, they understand and try to not do the same thing again. And therefore they will assume that whatever they're doing within that particular dating sphere or dating sim is the same and should be allowed. Number three, we think that sexual attraction exists within status quo. It's easily stimulated by the fact all you have to do is just go to a computer and get that Sexual attraction isn't that easy, Madam Chair. You have to be a person, you have to be a nice person, you have to get involved within relationships to be a person that is, oh my God, calm down, okay? In this relationship that exists within status quo. The fourth thing is, when it comes to resources, we think that is extremely harmful because corporations who control these dating sites victimize individuals who are vulnerable within status quo, and this forms a lot of majority of the people that exist within status quo. This means that because you're vulnerable and you are rejected within status quo because of the negative connotations that exist, that because you couldn't find the perfect girl, you couldn't get that perfect person, and therefore you're denied, you are in a slump. So go towards those places and look for a relationship within the computer. This is bad because it's allowed corporations to fuel and get higher money based on your demise and your denial and your saddening. We think this is extremely dangerous and harmful to do so. But the last harm, and this is the fifth harm, I'll take you after this, right? The last harm, the fifth harm, is that anything can be substituted because you can do so. Now, because I don't get a girlfriend, and because I'm a bad person, or whatever it is I am, and because I can't get a girlfriend, I have the ability to substitute and create my own girlfriend, and therefore I become a person with a happy relationship. This proves that that's a bad precedent, that if you're not happy with anything, you can just create your own thing, and therefore that doesn't exist. Because you have to understand that if you as a person get denied, you change yourself in hopes that you get accepted in the future. That doesn't happen because under the side, they will forever be accepted by the computer, they will forever be accepted by the dating sim. We think it's important to understand that. Before I move on to the second argument, sure.
So if this person is very unconfident and insecure, why would he ever opt for your organic form of discourse when he isn't ready to talk to other people?
What if he's insecure as an individual and in status quo, you force him to be secure, you force him to become confident, you force him to have values that people in status quo have. Like, it's important to be yourself within status quo. But I don't understand your POI. It's so important, it's so redundant, right? This is important, that you have the ability as an individual, have the ability to change yourself. Under your side, you can be the same person whoever you are within status quo because your computer always accepts you. Let's look at the idea of victimizing vulnerable individuals or victimizing teenagers, because they are the ones that are most affected within these circumstances. Why is this bad? Because number one, you have never decided and you have never been rejected, because naturally a lot of teens are within that first circumstance, or before they've been rejected in from a relationship, they straight away go to this valid option that exists within status quo. That means they never tried the actual method of relationship. Yes, it's the real form of relationship, and then they go do so. There's an unfair and undue influence towards these individuals. They manipulate them to think. But the second thing is, it's extremely hard to opt out of the system, because you're constantly happy and you're constantly in a cycle and you will never be rejected. You're happy with these circumstances. This is bad because you're out of reality. In reality, you can never always be happy, Madam Chair. You have to learn that sometimes you cannot be happy. How do you then accommodate in those circumstances? You force and allow individuals to run away from the real situation that exists with the status quo. We think that's extremely harmful. We regret that. Thank you.
It's shameful that side government came out to tell you few things that, that a person can easily migrate back to society when the person is insecure. The side government has been assuming a lot that everything that this dating sim can do is something that they will never get in real life. That's not necessarily true. We'll explain why later in my speech. Love is simply a chemical. It is people that give meaning to it. It's the people who make those love something that they want to have and something that they should be having in the first place. Let me just clarify what status quo. Status quo already has laws and regulation to control the harms of your love, only apply when there is a third-party harm to another person or to your lover themselves. If you do this, it means that you don't actually love them, or you are just need to be fixed through rehabilitation in order for you to understand your love more better. In status quo, if a person already loves a dating sim, for example, like this dating sim that we're debating about, if that person already loves that dating sim, what's so harmful about that? It's the person's choice to even be in love with that person's dating sim. There'll be no third-party harm, like what you wanted to say, like children are going to get third-party harm, because children will not know. We don't necessarily think so, because the children already have the rush. Do you have parents to rationalize them, to tell them what exactly can happen when this go? I'll explain explicitly how the audience of these people who are exactly going through these dating sims. But before I move on, I'll have a few rebuttals really. First of all, the first thing he said is that it's bad for a person to fall in love with a computer because it's something that substitutes your daily life within the simulation within status quo. Okay. first level of responsibility. What's so wrong about that? Because the person really loves the person within that video game or within that dating simulation, you don't necessarily think that's a problem. It's that person's informed choice to even choose to love that person in the first place. It's the person's choice to even play the game in the first place. You do not restrict the right, or you don't even restrict the person from even playing that game in the first place. Because if I was the person who loves another thing for something that I think is beautiful in that nature as a whole, then you have no rights to say that I shouldn't love that thing because I'm the one who chose to love that thing. You don't tell me I don't want to love this because I choose what I want to love. Secondly, he told you that children will not learn, it's bad for the children. A person will substitute because if the dating sim, if you like a burger, the dating sim also likes a burger. This is not necessarily true because the dating sim also has a personality that you can like. Maybe that's why in the video it shows the few things that characterizes the person first and analyzes the person's first. Then the voice comes out, and then when that voice, then only he gets attracted to that voice. It doesn't necessarily mean that this person will also like a burger as well, because that doesn't even exist when you say the score. Because a video game can't really eat a burger. So dating sim will never reject you. Okay. If you're going to put it in this way, how are you going to be so sure that when a normal person goes out into society, the main reason to why this person even goes to these dating sim games in the first place is because most probably because they're insecure about themselves, people who don't really know what to do within the society, people who don't really know how to socialize within other people as well. Therefore, they cater towards this dating sims game, this dating simulation game, which is better towards them because they can actually then voice out and they actually can have that form of discourse that they actually wanted in the first place. So secondly, Siddhartha POI'd him. Like, what about the insecure people who can't really talk to the people in society? He told you that he's gonna force people to talk to people in society. That's just harming the people. Some people are really so insecure to the extent that they think about killing themselves. We think that it's really harmful when you even put in that type of burden, when you're forcing a person in order to be with somebody that to be someone that person isn't really is in the first place. Before I move on to my first substantive, yes.
The insecure person couldn't find a girlfriend, maybe he says, so you go and look for another person until you find a girlfriend.
Oh my God.
You can create the perfect girlfriend for you, Why is that alright?
We tell you that first of all, the people who even go to play these games in the first place, these dating simulation games, are people who often don't really have that confidence to speak to other people. This dating simulation game can also help you into building your confidence, into getting another person within the society. We don't necessarily think that everything you do, you need to go training first. This dating simulation game, I'll explain why explicitly how this dating simulation game will give you that form of training that you should be having in the first place. No, sit down. My first substantive on how dating a sim makes you understand better about love. First level analysis. Who are the people who are more likely to be dating sims? People who has bad social communication people who has bad communication with other people within society. This means they don't understand how to interact, they don't understand how to say things, and they have the fear of talking to other people as well. They don't have that communication with another person. Also, there's a social strata that exists. So some people just decide to talk to you based on your popularity, and some people just don't decide to talk to you because maybe just a nerd or a geek within school. It's existent within, say, the school. So these people don't have anybody else to talk to, so they can cater to the dating simulation game because that's the only way where they can voice out and express the love they always wanted to express to someone else. Sit down, Roshan. These are also people who are insecure, afraid of being judged by another person through communication. That's why they're more likely to abstain from forming relationships with other people. Due to the fact that they're scared of being judged, they cater to these video games so that they won't be judged because these video games would treat them like how they always wanted people to treat him in the first place. Second level analysis. Sit down. Why do people opt towards dating sims? Because dating sims are artificial means, looks past all your insecurities and who you are to have a conversation. This means that they listen to you and they help you. They help you in terms of emotions, they help you in terms of getting better love relationships with the other people. We tell you it's better if you allow these people to go to this dating simulations, to play this dating simulations game in the first place, because these people then can gain confidence. Even if these dating simulator games judge you, they are not as cruel as real life people, more likely to take time and be more patient with you. So this dating simulation game will more likely take time with you, or even have spent time with you to really understand what exactly you are, what exactly the personality that has within you. So how do these dating sims help you in the real world? Because once someone listens to you, that's when you form an understanding and communication within that person and within another. It also helps you get past your insecurities, because it doesn't judge you for it. It embraces you and allows you to move on. A dating sim does exactly that. A human being does not. Why is this good? 3 angles. Number 1, you can parallel them back to society, because meaning that they talk to this dating simulation game, they get more confidence, and they will be more confident to speak to other people within the society as well. You don't think that's harmful at all. Secondly, even if they fall in love with dating sim, the relationship is purely romantic. So it does no harm at all, because the person loves that game for a reason. It's the same meaning as having a wife. Doesn't mean that they're going to stop talking to everyone as a whole. Instead, now you are going to be a happy person. In our worst case scenario, where the person stays at home and they keeps on playing the game forever, we don't necessarily think that's harmful at all, because there'll be no third party harm, because in our paradigm, that person is still happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we recognize that individuals have insecurities in their everyday lives, is it the state's duty to fund insecurities or to push people into facing their insecurities and their phobias in itself? We recognize it's the inherent burden of every other individual within our society to face their fears. The question then becomes, should it be a leeway for corporations to fund and benefit profit from people's insecurities to make money out of people feeling insecure, and should the state then allow it? I have one argument for you today. How it is standards for beauty for every other individual. Considering the connotations that you can only accept someone within this dating sim, how does it affect real life interactions and how does it affect emotions? Before that, a large number of rebuttals. Because they try to have some form of responses to the Prime Minister's argument. He had 2 actually. He tried to say that the substitution is still fair because there's no third party harm and it's a choice. Then he tried to relate this by telling us that parents can rationalize and can tell their children that this is not what you should be watching. The problem with this is media is everywhere, Mr. Speaker. It's in every individual's daily life. You can't be absent or you can't expose yourself away from things like sexualized images or violent images within society. That's an argument against exposure as a whole. So even in its own case, we need to recognize that this person will get some form of influence which no one can regulate. That's the response that fell. But the second response, which was children, because he tried to tell us that this person has a personality. This dating sim has a personality. That's not a dating sim, that's sentience in itself. The personality that a dating sim forms itself upon is upon your own characteristics and the response that it gives towards your actions as a whole. That's not a personality, that's a counter reaction. We don't need that from people. We need people to express their own beliefs as to how individuals react within society. That is what we need to take into consideration, not just a computer's own opinion. But then he tried, let's look at the last response, right, towards our, he said, last response. He tried to tell us that the dating sim will sometimes reject you. But this begs the question, why would corporations fund projects of people being even more insecure with dating sims rejecting them if they lose ample amount of profits? The only answer and the logical link here is that corporations will consistently try to make people happy with the dating sims. Dating sims will always accept you as soon as corporations make more money. He also left a lot of room. He didn't respond to other arguments as to how vulnerability towards children within circumstances like this and discourse which allows individuals to form their own opinions. Now, what's their argument? Because he tried to tell us that these people are insecure. This is the problem. If they're insecure and they're afraid of society, why push them away from society? Why put them in a box where they can confine themselves when they have to open up at some point in time? Based on society, when the odds are against these individuals, even if the social strata is popularity, people need to counter this popularity and not just go to dating sims as a last resort. People need to counter the social strata, and the only way we can do this is to stop funding insecurity within individuals. If all insecure individuals within our society start to interact because they know that that's the only thing they can do, they know that that's the only form of option that they have, this is how we counter the social stigma and the characterization that stands. Last rebuttal, because he tried to tell us on this argument, just going to rebut his argument briefly, because these are individuals under the social strata who are based on popularity. Because if you're going to argue that these people are looking past, if the dating sim looks past all insecurities, these individuals are going to cater to your every need. But would you want a person to cater to your every need based on your own perceptions, which in itself are already insecure, or do you want everyday individuals who respect you for who you are? And this is how we really get rid of insecurity, by individuals being put at the brink of getting of that phobia, and we can only do that by omitting themselves and giving them falsified forms of information. But let me just give them the doubt, right? Because even in their best case scenario for their paradigm, when this dating sim, I'm just building the argument for them, if this dating sim can make this person feel secure, and this dating sim can make this person feel happy, at its most point, even if it's illogical, why is it still wrong? Because if you're going to feel secure, you're going to feel happy about a dating sim as a non-sentient, in itself artificial intelligence, what's wrong with that? You can't feel secure in your entire environment. The problem with that argument is, if people feel secure only from this dating sim, why would they have any need to not seclude themselves from the rest of society, Mr. Speaker? So at best, their argument only puts this person in this room for the rest of his life, because he can only feel comfortable with the dating sim. We think real life interactions are something we need to respect. Before I move on to my arguments, sure.
Please explain to us why exactly you're disallowing people to be happy because of the decisions that they make.
We disallow people to be happy a lot of times. So we recognize that their actions or the happiness in itself is already falsified. When the happiness are motivated by things that won't keep them happy for a lot of time. That's why we look for long-term benefits within circumstances. Sure, you can live with your dating sim for the rest of your life. What about perceptions that are formed about you? What about your career? What about how you treat your family within circumstances like this? These are the kinds of things that require real-life interactions which a dating sim cannot provide. At best, their argument only allows individuals to confine themselves to the dating sim and not ever look at the light of leaving that group at the end. First argument, how it's standards of beauty. Because there is a demand by the emotional, irrational individuals who fund this dating sim and give these dating sim corporations hope. Even its own defiant statics of choosing people on a basis of dating sims is something that's high. Because people have been denied their entire lives. So people who haven't even tried, but have been pushed by the stigma that dating sims are things that are good, and dating sims are things that will never reject you. We need to recognize that you place a certain standard as to how good a person needs to be the moment they be your social partner. Or you place a certain standard as to how good you need to be before you be my girlfriend or my wife at the end of the speaker. This sparks up insecurities even more, because now people don't accept me because I'm not as good at their dating sim. First, you're insecure because you can't talk to individuals, but now this fuels you to be even more insecure because everyone is motivated by the fact that you're not as good looking people want to perceive you to be. So this pushes people to the brink of being more insecure within circumstances. What are the harms to this? 3, 4. 1. You treat individuals in this reality the same way you treat the dating sim. So you have all amps of respect towards the person in the dating sim. This puts the people around you in your reality on a lower pedestal. You don't treat the people in your environment as people who you want to interact with and people who you respect. Because all your respect and all your focus is only pinpointed towards this one dating sim, thus demoting all the other people, like all the other girls, all the other boys in your environment. This even puts other individuals in your environment as insecure. Why is this problematic? Because their problem was popularity. Their problem was people treating other individuals with popularity. Now you have standards of people treating each other in popularity and on beauty, which is objective in itself. Now the environment that you live in is the environment that you have to be like that dating sim, or you have to be as close to that dating sim as possible for people to even go near you, or people to interact with you, because insecure individuals can only interact with that form of environment and that form of picture. Second argument, you respect artificial intelligence more than you respect individuals in your daily lives. This is harming the interaction between individuals in our daily lives within circumstances. For allowing dating sims to fill this caveat of insecurity, you spark up insecurities between both individuals. Third and most important argument, this pollutes the subjectivity of beauty, because beauty is defined by how individuals view another. But if that beauty and your definition of beauty is motivated by a dating sim, an artificial intelligence that suits your own mind, where does the standards of beauty go there? It goes to the individuals who define it based on statistics. We're very proud to propose.
Hello. It is astonishing how little one feels poverty when he loves. Once said by Bulwer, a man may suffer from insecurity, he may be unconfident, but love And happiness allows this man to move past that. Love can never be objective, and love is to make you happy. If I am happy and harm no others, why should I not love? Yes, the answer is because it's not a person. Well, too bad for you. You're being unfair. And there are 2 reasons why in my substantive contribution. But before that, 3 points of rebuttal. The first thing, on 2 issues that they wouldn't shut up about. They told us that there is an exploitation by corporations on people, and this creates a victimization. By this logic, is everything an exploitation? Because by virtue of it being an advertisement, we somehow can't make a rational decision. Advertisements are there to get your attention. The choice is then placed to you on whether you want to go through with that attention. Your exploitation then occurs on a daily basis because every company has the right to advertise. Then how do you stop it? You don't. But even still, if it's a choice, then is it still victimization? Victimization occurs when you don't get to choose, when you're forced into doing something because of a stigma. You're choosing here on behalf of what you think is best for yourself. This doesn't victimize you, it gives you the right and autonomy over your own decisions. At best, it empowers you to do what you want to do. No, thank you. But even still, how do you increase victims? Because you keep placing a stigma that these people can never make decisions, that every time you see an advertisement, they will be exploited. That's why you make them portray them as victims, portray them as people who can't stand up for themselves. No, thank you. But even still, they argue to us that these beings are simply artificial. If they couldn't make own decisions, then they'd be sentient. Well, here's 3 responses because you don't understand them. No, thank you. They're unique beings based on collective personalities. When these beings are formed, obviously take into account who you are, but they don't base this being on you. If that was so, you'd be talking to yourself. Because based on collective personalities, you have a diverse view of who you're talking to, diverse responses from a being that won't judge you harshly. When this happens, you can have conversations that are concrete, that have substantial material. No, thank you. But even still, in your paradigm, what happens at best? Because at least they don't reject you to a harsh extent. People are cruel, and if you make a mistake, then your social strata, your popularity dismisses you because you made a mistake and you're not cool enough to be with us. But even so, that comes to my second thing, on his idea that force always needs to be there to put you in society. Here, there's no long-term benefit. 4 responses. Firstly, what happens in your paradigm at best? In your paradigm, an insecure, unconfident person stays unconfident because he doesn't have an incentive to go out there and talk to others when people don't respect him, when people don't want to talk to him. He remains insecure because he doesn't understand how to communicate, he doesn't understand how to interact. Your alternative is, it's okay, he doesn't need to. We need him to stay happy because at least it's not with a person. No, thank you. How do you actually change the strata if you so want to? You don't, because either they never interact or 2, they're constantly insecure. If you want to change the strata, then you as a person need to actualize on your own terms. Actualization comes when you're happy. If you're happy because of this being, why can't you let this person be happy? By being happy, he will move past the strata, he will be his own person, without having to depend on the strata of society. When this happens, he becomes an individual, he doesn't become part of the society that you want him to subscribe to. No, thank you. But even still, why do you improve interaction? We say interaction only occurs and you understand it when you've had it in the past and you have experience. Relationships help you form other relationships. Because he has a relationship with this being, doesn't mean he's going to kill himself and not talk to anyone. He could form different relationships through this experience. At least now he knows how to communicate, he knows how to interact. We provide him an experience. But even still, a long-term benefit. If a long-term benefit is when you are happy, this happiness branches out to other benefits. In your paradigm, he isn't happy. The long-term benefit only comes to him constantly being told what to do. No, thank you. But the final rebuttal on his point, when you place a standard, how people are more insecure. If this person is already happy, why does he need to keep impressing all these boys and girls? If he has a wife, why does he need to always make others not demoted? He has a person now that he is dedicated to. It isn't his responsibility to not demote you. Therefore, we feel your point doesn't make sense. But even still, that if you want to accept this, the beauty of a sim is there is no physical attraction there because doing it based on the personality and her response towards you. That's why we don't have this objectification of beauty, we don't have this objectification of an artificial intelligence. Something that's very abstract conclusion and based on assertions. But before I move into my substantive contribution, yes.
So you're saying that a daily interaction with every other person on this planet doesn't matter because I already have someone to talk to. That in itself is the abstinence of catering to other individuals is something that won't stand for. In itself is discrimination.
By that logic, if you have a wife and there's one person you're dedicated to, why not spend the entirety of your days only talking to your wife? Because that's the one person. You have a being that you're dedicated to. Because you have one relationship, that doesn't make every other relationship not meaningful. Instead, it gives meaning to other relationships because now you are a happy person, you are a secure person. In your comparative, this person isn't happy, he won't have an incentive to go out there because there is no dedication. No thank you. On my first argument, on how you reshape the culture of love that you so want to fight for. 3 questions we have to ask. The first question, what is the importance of love? Love shapes us as a people. The reason why it's important is we have the choice to give it meaning by expressing our love and how we seem is fit. And there are 3 reasons why. Because we give love meaning. Love is a chemical that exists. Because it exists, not all of us have to use it. The only way a person understands love and expresses it is when he wants to. By doing so, we give it meaning, and giving it meaning allows others to share our love, others to feel the same happiness that we have. But the second reason is because we have the choice to love. No one forces you to love. No one places an objective standard as to how you should love. Because that, when you realize you have the choice and you make use of that choice, only then will you feel love, will others feel the same amount of love that you do. In your side, in your side, the people don't get to choose because their choice apparently isn't legitimate because they don't love an organic being. But the third reason as to why it's important is because we, like it or not, need love. Love helps us to help others. Once we as a person are secure due to love, then we can help others with our love and we can share the happiness. In your paradigm, only one person is happy because he can be in a social strata. We don't think it's fair. But the second question, why can't love be objective? Because if you objectify love, you remove the element of choice, you remove the element of meaning. You don't give meaning to love anymore. The state does it for you. Society gives meaning to love. Because your relationships aren't one that's organic, it's made by you for other people. Other people form your relationships, other people make love for you. It's not an organic process where you don't value the relationship or you don't value love, you don't even value the relationship you're in. There is no meaning here. But the second reason is it wrong to then date a sim? We say if the sim makes you a happy person, why not? Because your happiness here is what you need to stop being insecure. If he's happy, why not let him stay happy? What are the harms of him being happy other than him not talking to every single individual on the block? But the final question, on how do we reshape the culture of love? We reshape it because we change the stereotype. And the only way you can be happy, the only way you can feel love, if it's between you and a woman. It can be between you and a sim, it can be between you and your male friend. If you're happy at the end of the day, then you're a happy individual, and that's what's important. For all those reasons, we reshape the culture of love, we give you love. Very proud to oppose. Thank you.
The moment when you realize that virtual being that wouldn't appear to you in that reality that we live in. Everything that Siddhartha talked about might be experienced in Cinderella, but not in the world that we live in. We tell you that even if you fail, even if that girl that you wanted all your life didn't accept you, we don't think that it's the decision of that person or that in that emotional state, in that irrational state, that is when people decide to go to dating sims. This is when people decide that the reality is failing me, that's why I need a virtual being to continue my life. We think that is when it's regrettable. I have 2 issues in today's debate. First of all, why is the advocation towards a dating sim that people currently do regrettable? And secondly, what are the implementations that it will have upon individuals if we have this culture being maintained in a society? Number 1, why is the advocation towards a dating sim regrettable? Because the ideas that they talked about were things like it's not a victimization because the person consented into going into that relationship because the person was rational somehow. Have a seat, all of you. That person was somehow rational because he was doing it on a basis of what's best for that person. We don't think this is valid because the person that substantiates what a beautiful person is, What is the person that will fit into the characterization that every other guy wants to date out there? These are forms of things that were formed into that mindset, or were formed into the perception of that person because of that undue influence that person has, because of the constant being of perception of what beauty is and how that dream girl that he wants to be with at the end of the day. These are forms of things that we admit were caused by undue influence, were caused by things that the person couldn't stop by any end of the day. But then what do you do then? It doesn't mean that you can help that person into making that decision because he wants to date a virtual being. You have to give him that form of belief that even if he's confident, even if he's not confident, even if he's insecure, because people will always be insecure, then that's the decision of facing reality. That's the decision of having discourse with that person that you want to date, having decision within that private relationship with that person, because you experience how you want to talk to that person at the end of the day. The second level to this issue is that you want to choose who you want to love, that they choose who you want to love at the end of the day. But before I move on, Aida,
If your decision depends on the acceptance of others, is he truly happy?
if that person is going to be happy, can you maintain or can you assure me that he will be happy every other single day of his life, or only will he be happy at that point of where he's training to love that actual girlfriend that he wants to? That means after he goes out from the training simulation, after he goes out from the dating scene that you talked about, he's going to face that same girl. He's going to face that same insecurity, that same unconfidence that he had. Is it better for that person to go through that experience of constantly talking to the girl, of constantly understanding that person that he really wants to date, or dating a person that will say yes to every other thing he says, that to accept that every other connotation that the person will make at the end of the day? The second level of this issue is that shame your pants. The second level to this issue is that talk about love. Love is something good, and how it's okay that it's because we are reshaping the value of that culture of love at the end of the day. This is something Siddhartha talked about. We agree to it. Love is something sacred. Yes, everyone should love every other thing. But what's the best way to do it at the end of the day? Is it only a way to have it on a fantasy level or have it on a virtual level? Because we want them to that level of having them to experience or having them to maintain the exposure that they're supposed to have with the actual girl Siddhartha, even if you fail, even if you don't stop having that girlfriend, or even because she doesn't understand you at that point of time. These are forms of things that will cause that irrational decision of that person to go into that virtual dating scene, to cause that person to have that actual person, or to shape that actual character that he wants to date at the end of the day. We don't think it will apply in reality. The second issue on what's the implementation upon the individuals then, because they talked about how it's okay because you're happy at that point of time, but it doesn't mean that you expose yourself, or it doesn't mean when you talk to artificial intelligence it's going to make you happy. Even if it does make you happy, will that happiness last at the end of the day? Virtual things like games, things like dating sims have a high amount of influence. That's why people kill people because of games. People have a high amount of decisions that they make because of games at the end of the day. These are all the things that shows the influence that they have upon society, because now there will only be 10 characters that you can choose from of who you want to date. These are all the 10 characters will be almost perfect women, will be almost perfect girls that already have big breasts, that already have big asses at the end of the day. So you objectify people, you show people that every other person out there has to be that way, and this is the dream girl that I want to date. These are forms of connotations that will that will reshape the mindset that Siddhartha talked about into a bad way, not into a good way. Because now people will feel sad if they don't get that real girl at the end of the day. What if that girl that he wants to get is not same as that training simulation, or is not same as the dating sim at the end of the day? What are you going to do then? Sit and cry? We don't think these are forms of the individuals that we will set for people, because you don't let them come out from that box. You don't let them come out from that situation where you have to face reality, because when you face reality, it's going to be something sad and something that you cannot be happy about. But before I move on, sure.
If your reason is there is undue influence, why would there be a due influence when other people are choosing for you compared to you making a choice based on whether or not you are happy in this?
See, we're not creating a girl or making a girl come to earth for you to date now. We're telling you that even if you don't get a girlfriend, even if that girl rejects you at the end of the day, you should stay on and stay confident, or have that experience into dating a real girl, or having that relationship, that sexualization of having an actual relationship, into talking to that girl, into going out on a date with her. These are forms of things that will allow for that person into going out into that actual sacred private relationship, because we think that their policy destroys the sanctity that a private relationship has. The second level to this issue is that how they talk about things like how they are insecure and confident because you choose who you want to love at the end of the day. That's why we don't allow things like prostitution. That's why we don't allow things like pornography, because we don't want you to fantasize or facilitate that wrong decision or wrong imagination at the end of the day, because we don't think it's a moral standard, because the state has to be a moral arbiter in this case into protecting you from making unreasonable or bad decisions at the end of the day. The second level is that they talk about things like, like even if they're happy, the state is the one that's going to make you happy because you don't allow me to be happy now at the end of the day. We tell you that when you set a standard of how you should talk to a person because of your emotions, because of your emotions that are set into a certain way, that means she'll only reply you with X amount of things. If you say something, that means she's only going to say yes, or she's only going to say a certain sentence that is programmed to be under that dating scene because to attract viewers, because they're going to program it in a way to attract more people to come into their dating scene. That's already a falsified manner of love at the end of the day. So the second level is that how real people are different. It doesn't allow you to get used to it. Even if you talk to that virtual being, when you talk to an actual girl, it's going to be different. Even if you're judged in society, even if girls judge you, I won't be incentivized to leave that relationship because she won't judge me. And even if I do, I will be sure to everybody that I wasn't the one that was actually capacitated to date you, because I dated a training simulator. I dated a dating sim because we didn't make decisions together. I made the decision, she followed me. It doesn't work that way in an actual relationship. People make decisions together. People make decisions together to be happy at the end of the day. For all those reasons, please don't side with side government.
Nobody chooses rejection, right? We tell you that when society rejects you, why do you put the burden on that people, on the individual who wants to escape that reality, right? Nobody wants to be rejected, that's obvious. But when that happens, how sure are you they can get back to their feet and make their mistakes, right? I'll tell you in my speech that why they can't do that, right? Three issues in this debate. Why is it justified, the interaction, and finally, why does the end justify the means, right? So moving on to my first clash point, is it alright to find that perfect girl and they say it's wrong, right? We tell you that it's alright, right? Because even we tell you that it's alright to do so, right? For example, Victoria's Secret models, right? Who has that body where no girl, I don't know how they achieve it, right? It's that body where even men is supposed to fantasize, regardless or not whether or not you have that nice body. So what, right? It's only there for social views. Why is that? Why is it bad, right? We tell you that even if you deem it's bad, we tell you that it's their own individual's freedom of choice to do so, right? Sit down. We tell you that you need to respect that choice that they make, not just force them and put your own, indoctrinate them with your own social perceptions and things like that, right? We tell you that it's alright to be different. Why not just let them be happy, be different? Why you stop it or halting there, right? Before I move on to my next class, yes, Shishan.
Evidence never justifies the action of the individual. We need to see somehow engagement or opposition. Is this person going to a dating sim because he wants to meet a person in real life, or is he going to a dating sim?
Sir, don't you think that the reason why people opt in to go for dating sim is, number one, okay, maybe it's fun, but number two, when they already accept that, when they already have that rejection, we tell you that, and then when he can't accept the rejection, why not just allow him to go through it, right? You're forcing him to not go through that rejection, make him stand on his feet, put a chain around his neck and make him stand up. We tell him that's wrong. Why are you forcing them to do so, right? Moving on to my next next point, the second level, sit down. Will people actually learn from their mistakes? Not necessarily, right? Because if actually people actually learn from mistakes, why are there still suicides happening, right? Suicides when people get rejected from their jobs, people get rejected when there are things like that. In the same way, when people, not everybody will accept their mistakes, will accept their experience, right? Okay, we do agree that experience is good, but when you face that rejection, when you face that thing, when people can't accept that experience and rejection, why are you stopping it, right? Just let it happen, let that freedom of choice stand, right? So moving on to my next, on the third level, is it alright for organic change, right? We tell you sit down. We tell you that it's shameful for outside opposition, government, to just assume that everyone will change. We tell you on the first level, why that it won't happen, because it depends on the mindset of that person, right? If that person is strong and confident, even if he faces rejection, he won't do it, right? But if you think on the second angle, where how that person is not confident, as insecure, and then he will never be experienced, right? Even if you were to force him, even if you were to tie a string around his neck to make him stand, we tell you that that's not the right way to do it, right? We tell you that even if that sit down, even if under your paradigm you deem is bad, we tell you that we stand for the freedom of choice, right? So before I move on to your victimizing individual, which is
Since you say that people have to be happy all the time, if things are not working out in a marriage life, should we now legalize or allow cheating websites?
Sir, the reason why, in this case, in dating sims, is because they achieve that rejection that people give, right? That means even if he wants to be happy in going to dating sims, why are you stopping it, right? So moving on to my next second level, right? Will it victimize the individual, right? No, right? Because we tell you that you actually give them confidence, right? Because your side, you're assuming that these people are bad and things like that. These people won't have any interaction as a whole. But no, we tell you that dating sim have games, are games that make you apply your interaction in games, right? For example, asking out, like for example, they give you choices and you choose that choice as a form of interaction, right? We tell you sit down. So even if we were to victimize, we tell you that you won't victimize that individual, because the individual in the end is happy while you're stopping there, right? So moving on to my next class point on interaction. If it doesn't, he won't interact if it doesn't have the meaning to do so. If he's unhappy, why would he want to interact in the first place, right? So it doesn't mean that you're going to the dating sim, he won't interact, right? He will still interact as a whole. It doesn't matter. It's just a form of gaming system, a form of fun. And even if he were to choose, us to stay in a room covered in blanket policy, Kishan, covered in blanket policy and things like that, we tell him that it doesn't matter, because that form of interaction is what he wants, right? It's his life he wants to live. Why are we tell you that the government has no right to do so, right? And in the end, so in the conclusion to this argument about interaction, we tell you that even if you deem that the interaction is important, it's his own informed choice to interact, right? Even if he makes his sit down, even if he makes his parents sad, it's his own choice. We can't stop it. Why is the state forcing and indoctrinating this, right? So in the end, why does the end justifies the mean, right? We've told you that why it can actually combat depression, right? When people actually go to sit down, sir, when people actually go through this, to combat depression, because number one, these dating sims don't judge people at all, right? And when you have to face the harsh cruelty of the reality of people, why can't people have a safety net, right? Just go through that alternative reality. We help combat depression. Under your paradigm, you make people combat depression by force, right? We tell you that you actually need to like let that happen by itself. Sit down, all of you. So we tell you that you actually help combat depression. About people who sit down, or people who are less insecurity and things like that, right? So second level on how you feel the confidence as a whole, right? Because even if you what you say that even if right if he were to like stay in his room and things like that, how would you feel his confidence, right? By applying that knowledge he gets from games, like that he can actually be more confident. And even if it doesn't apply to everybody, at least he's confident with himself, right? At least he can confident that he completed the game and things like that, right? So lastly on and for example, the informed choice is extremely important to recognize, right? So what about nerds and geeks who chose that life, right? Who chose to be nerds, who chose to be gamers for the rest of their life? Then how will you deal with it? Then will they be they also won't interact, right? That even in other games, people only concentrate on, for example, Call of Duty, shooting them down, that they don't actually interact with other people. Then will you then also ban that corporation as well, ban it from regret this type of things? We tell you that dating sim isn't necessarily bad, because the dating sim isn't necessarily bad, because in the end, it's what's the individual's choice to do so. We tell you, side opposition stands for the freedom of choice.
Someone steal my iPod. the unity that binds us all together, that makes this earth a family, and all men's brothers and the sons of God is love. Once said by George Orwell. Love isn't exclusive to you and a woman or you and a dating sim. Love is you being happy. If you are happy, then this is love. My reply speech will be split into two parts. Firstly, 3 reasons why they lost. Secondly, the 2 questions that both sides had to answer to win this debate. So firstly, 3 reasons why they lost. The first reason is, they debated under a nirvana fallacy. They wanted us to prove everything. The debate isn't about proving how we're going to change the world as a whole, it's to prove one key question. And that was, will dating sims make you happier in comparison to a relationship with human beings? They ran away from the question because they prioritized societal acceptance. They prioritize other people deciding for you. This isn't you being happier, it's you who are subscribing to another person's ideals of what should be happy. That's not organic, that's not real. But the second reason why they lost was on the contradictions, and there were 3. Firstly, they wanted people to change for others, but then they also wanted people to be themselves. Secondly, happiness should be prioritized as long as it's a societal acceptance. Okay, but finally and best, that Nimran said, there is no standard for love. But what is the moral standard of love? This is the 3 contradictions that they said that made it not only confusing for us to accept what they wanted, but in essence, the argumentation also contradicted itself. But third and final reason was on how they're creating a false idea of what a dating sim is. Throughout all 3 speakers, a dating sim evolved from one person based on who you are. Then in Nimran, it was 10 sets of models that you can choose on. You can't change the dating sim to your own convenience. A dating sim is based on a collective group of personalities put into one being. That's why it's a diverse way of you getting experience, of you getting a response from a different being. It doesn't have to be your person, it simply has to be organic. Now, the 2 questions that we need to ask. The first one, on which side encourages interaction in society? What we from side opposition said, that interaction is always important. But if you as a person are happy, then should we still prioritize your interaction with other people if you don't want it? They wanted to force interaction. Because in their idea, or in their minds, interaction is the key to you always being happy. That isn't true. Sometimes you don't need a society to make you happy, you need one person. That's why you have a wife, that's why you have love. We say even if that's not enough for you, we encourage interaction. Because you only form interaction once you know how to interact, once you know how to communicate. The people we're talking about are unconfident and they're insecure. The only way they're going to get out of that is not by running at people saying, please love me now. It's by learning how to communicate, learning how to interact. The only way this happens is when they train with the sim, or at least they know how to. But even if they don't want to leave the sim, they want to stay with the sim forever, it doesn't mean all interaction will stop. When you have a wife, when you have one partner, it doesn't mean you stop talking to your father and your mother and your sister. Instead, it makes you prioritize one relationship compared to others. You can still form other relationships. But finally, on which side makes you happier? And this is one that clearly went to opposition. Because their happiness isn't based on an individualistic idea of what's happy. Their happiness is based on society accepting you for being happy. If society is trying to tell you what is happy and what should be happy, then you're not trying to be happy, you're just simply subscribing to views of happiness and how it should be. You're happy if you want to be happy, you're happy when you're allowed to be happy. A dating sim can make you happy, and that doesn't make it wrong. It makes it alright. Because as long as you have love, and as long as you feel happy with this dating sim, what are the harms of doing so? It didn't provide any harm, it simply debated under the premise that this person might not be liked by society, this person might forever be alone. If you want this person to be happy, give him choice and give him love. 2 elements that they missed out on because they tried to argue under corporations, victimization, and whatnot. You increase the stigma when you forever paint him as a person that can't be happy because he's inconfident, he's unconfident, he's insecure. That's why you increase the stigma, you put more victimization onto him. For all these reasons, we're very proud to have closed. Thank you.
Love is good, but it's also consensual and not motivated by irrationality. Because the only question that comes from side opposition is that if I want to love, why can't I? And that's the only question that they necessarily ask, which we answered through all 3 speakers. I don't know whether they got it or not. The reason being is that your love and the person that you create to love as an individual is a falsified perception of reality in nature. This is bad. Because if you as a person don't realize your own self, your own mistakes, what if I'm mean? What if I'm a bigot? What if I'm rude? I don't realize that because I'm talking to the person that agrees to my every word and agrees to my every sentence in status quo. That means that it doesn't change you as an individual. The problem with this temporary love within status quo is that you have to face reality. Siddhartha very correctly pointed out that you also face talking to your father, talking to your mother. When you are in a situation where you're comfortable, where your person you're talking to agrees to everything you say, you are culture shocked when another individual tells you, I'm not going to agree with you, we think that's problematic, you do so. Because sure, no one wants rejection, but what do you do when you are rejected? Do you run away and form your own heart, or do you face those rejections and question, why did I become rejected as an individual? Maybe I should change, maybe I'm a mean person, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm a bigot, right? We think these are the kinds of things that exist in society. Because we need to ask an important question. Because in a marriage, and if you face problems within a marriage, do you deal with those problems or do you run away and get another marriage? We think it's important to understand that you have to deal with problems within status quo. This is a falsified. We told you and problematically, told you and characterized the problem within status quo. That beauty is currently being objectified, and this rise further perpetuates the situation that beauty is objectified. We think that if you can't get the perfect girl, this other avenue exists for you to go and get that perfect girl within status quo, Madam Chair. We think it's important. The two arguments that came from side opposition. Number one, preparation for the real world, and number two, how it embraces you and somehow allows you to move on. Three responses to the first one. Number one, why would I want to leave and prepare myself for a new world when I'm already comfortable and happy forever within the sphere that I already exist? Something that we asked, especially in Nimalan and Kishan's speech, that was not responded to by side of opposition. Number two, vice versa. Even if you do leave the particular situation, you're so comfortable with being happy, you're so comfortable with never being rejected, you will be culture shocked when someone actually rejects you in a real life conversation within status quo, Madam Chair. We don't want individuals to suffer with this temporary form of happiness to do so. But the third response is that your insecurity as an individual will be condoned as a good value. Sure, it's not wrong to be insecure, but it's also important to get out of the insecurity as an individual. Under this circumstance, you condone the insecurity, and these are the responses that are provided to you. Number two, we talk about how it embraces and allows you to move on as an individual. It embraces you, and that is bad. Because not every individual in status quo will always embrace you the minute you talk to them, Madam Chair. We think that you have to prepare these individuals for the reality of the world that is not so pretty, Madam Chair. We think it's important to understand that. It doesn't have sentience. Its personality is based on you. That's why it asks you questions before you start your discussion on how you are, and then it suits itself to you. It is not a real person, Madam Chair. It's a fake person that doesn't exist. You falsifyingly prepare these individuals for a world that doesn't exist within status quo. Important to understand. What are the arguments they talk to you? Number one, they talk about substitution and how you, in normal relationships, there is discourse. You make mistakes and then you change. It's important to understand. They didn't respond to that and just chose to ignore this within status quo. Number two, we talk about corporations and how they victimize individuals at the expense of their own irrationality. Something that was also ignored by side of opposition. We don't know whether they're doing the ignoring game in this debate. We told you that corporations have the ability to victimize these individuals who are already in a slump. We think that's regrettable in status quo. But the third argument that was also more responded to was that it's a standard of beauty that's continuously perpetuated. Because if you are a nerd or you are a geek, under our side, you continuously fight and find a girl. Maybe find a nerd or find a geek. But on their side, you go to that standard of beauty that is the person with big breasts, a person with a big ass, and a person with white skin color. Within that dating site, you have to choose, and you have the ability to choose. Under our side, you face them for the actual reality of the world that exists within status quo. We think that the subjectivity of beauty will never be accomplished under their side, something we've already argued. So to prepare an individual for not a fake world within status quo, we're extremely proud to propose. Thank you.